With domestic vaccine certs already being mailed out nationwide for indoor dining, we need to realise that we are witnessing the creation of a two-tiered segregated society where discrimination and medical coercion are the norm. This is Ben Scallan and you're watching Gript Media. After weeks of debate and discussion, we're here now with the domestic vaccine cert being rolled out across the country. As reported by the Irish Examiner, more than 1.8 million COVID certs to be issued to accelerate return of indoor dining. So what does this mean in practice? Well, in short, the only people who will be able to go to the pub, the cafe, or to a restaurant to dine indoors will be people who can prove using this cert that they've been fully vaccinated against COVID-19. And in case you think this won't be enforced, or you can spoof your way through it or something, realise that the government have introduced fines of up to €2,000 or a month in prison for those who try to fake this cert. So you may not take this seriously, but the government and the authorities definitely do. They aren't messing around. Now, this is inarguably a form of medical discrimination, and that's really not debatable. It's the textbook definition in that you're treating one group of people in society differently, allowing them to go to the pub or to the restaurant, and their unvaccinated mate has to stay outside like a dog. Now, there are endless reasons why someone might not want to get the vaccine, and you don't have to be a conspiracy headbanger to be cautious. For example, we know from the European Union CDC that the AstraZeneca vaccine in particular poses a greater risk to young people than the coronavirus does. As reported in the Irish Examiner, the study published in the weekly edition of the Eurosurveillance Journal concludes that using the AstraZeneca vaccine on the entire adult population, there would avert 10 deaths from COVID among 18 to 39-year-olds, but would be associated with 21 deaths from blood clotting in the same age grouping over the same time period. So in simple language, more than twice as many people under 40 would die from fatal blood clots associated with the AZ jab as would die from COVID. That's not me saying this, that's the European Centre for Disease Control. If you don't like what I'm saying, take it up with them. So being aware of that and feeling a bit concerned doesn't make you a conspiracy theorist or an anti-vaxxer. You're allowed to be concerned about these things. Numerous people have taken legal challenges over allegations that the swine flu vaccine resulted in them developing narcolepsy and had large settlements, sometimes 6 figures. So this kind of thing is not out of the question. Additionally, just last week, Moderna launched its clinical trial testing for whether the vaccine causes stillbirths or miscarriages in pregnant women, and yet Irish hospitals have already been distributing that to pregnant women since mid-May. So the point is, you're free to take the vaccine, all of that is your choice, but there's nothing unreasonable about declining it or being reluctant. There are perfectly sound reasons to be wary, especially for the younger age cohorts. So to then deny those people access to pubs and restaurants and God knows what else because they'd rather not take it is totally unjust. Especially since almost no young people are at risk from coronavirus. If you're a young, healthy person and most or all older people are vaccinated, then what exactly are we worried about? Does the vaccine work at offering protection or doesn't it? We already know that vaccinated people can still spread the disease, they just probably won't be hospitalized or killed by it. So if grandpa and grandma have been jabbed and then young people are mostly safe by default, then what's the issue? That's like saying, I suffer from hay fever, but it's not enough for me to take Claritin, everyone else needs to take it as well. Why? Most people don't have issues with hay fever. Just get on with it yourself. I mean, note the absurd lunacy of this policy, unfairness aside. It's already been established by legal experts that you can't force an employee to get the job. So hypothetically, you could work all day every day in a pub serving other people pints while you're unvaccinated, but as soon as your shift ends, you're not allowed to get a pint at the exact same establishment that you just spent 8 hours working in. Does that make sense to anybody? Apparently it makes sense to the majority of politicians in this country who just voted for it, but to normal people it's clearly preposterous, as demonstrated by the thousands of protesters who gathered outside the convention centre while the vote was happening. Now, maybe you're watching this at home and you're thinking to yourself, well, what's the big deal here? So unvaccinated people can't get a point, boo-hoo, so what? And maybe you're vaccinated yourself and you have your cert, so you think that this doesn't affect you. But this is much bigger than being able to get a pint with your mates. This is a seriously sinister precedent for our society that not many people have realised yet. First of all, if you have to verify whether you have the jab or not using this cert, then you're being made to disclose what should be private medical information just to do basic tasks. I think Michael Healy-Rae said it best during a recent press conference when he was asked his vaccination status by a reporter.
The very fact that you asked that question now, that's brilliant. Because I'll tell you why. It just shows where we are today as a society. A couple of months ago, could you imagine standing out here in the plinth and a reporter asking a politician a question about his personal medical records? He would be literally ostracised because of asking that question. But now I'm not blaming you for asking the question. I'm delighted you asked it because of the way the road we're going down. It's totally, absolutely crazy. That is going to be the question in the future. Whether you're going for a bite to eat, whether you're going to the cinema, whether you're getting on the bus, whether you're getting on the train, are you vaccinated? Have you your proof? And it won't be enough to say yes I am or no I'm not. If you're saying you are, you'll have to have your proof. And that is what the whole concern is about. And that is why, and by asking that question here today, which by the way, I wouldn't expect Matty to answer, I certainly wouldn't go telling you my medical records, or I wouldn't expect you to tell me mine, but I wouldn't ask you.
In a similar vein, American commentator Tucker Carlson had a comparable response when he was asked if he'd been vaccinated. That's like saying, do you have HIV? He told Times' Charlotte Alter in an interview published Thursday. How about none of your business? Carlson said it was a super vulgar personal question to ask if someone has received their COVID vaccine, adding, I mean, are you serious? What's your favorite sexual position and when did you last engage in it? He's dead right, is he not? If they can violate your medical privacy in this area, why can't they intrude elsewhere? Have you ever had an abortion? Are you on HIV medication? Do you have irritable bowel syndrome? What's your fertility status or your sperm count? There's a reason that the dumping of patient info online by the HSE hackers was so serious and such a suable offence on the part of the state. Your medical info is deeply intimate and it's nobody else's business but your own and your doctor's. Moreover, when they start arbitrarily banning people from doing normal things in society based on their medical status, that is clearly a form of coercion. Just because they aren't strapping you down to a gurney and forcibly injecting you doesn't mean that they aren't going to make your life a living hell until you comply. If declining the jab means that you can't go to the pub or to the restaurant, you can't get on a bus or a train, you can't live like a normal human being, then it is mandatory. The so-called choice to get the jab or live as a second-class citizen is no choice at all. And before anyone says, oh, who said anything about banning the unvaccinated from public transport? I'll put it this way. The HSE is already teaming up with dating apps like Tinder and Hinge so that vaccinated users get special benefits over unvaccinated people. That's happening right now. In other European countries like France, Italy and Greece, the jab is being made mandatory for certain economic sectors as we speak. French President Emmanuel Macron is even saying that mandatory vaccinations for all French citizens is on the table. As reported in the Washington Post, in France, President Emmanuel Macron announced this past week that people would have to flash their certificates before entering trains, planes, restaurants, cafes, and many other settings starting next month. We must move toward the vaccination of all French people because it is the only way to return to normal life, Macron said. They've even threatened fines of €45,000 for businesses that let unvaccinated people into their premises. In our nearest neighbouring country, the UK, Boris Johnson just said this week, some of life's most important pleasures and opportunities are likely to be increasingly dependent on vaccination. So is it an insane leap to believe that something like that could happen here? I mean, what's so special about pubs and restaurants? You can get COVID at the gym, you can get COVID at the airport, you can get COVID at the cinema or on the bus. If the argument is it's too dangerous to have unvaccinated people in a restaurant, the logical extension of that is to ban the unvaxxed from everywhere. This is what politicians mean when they say medical apartheid, despite establishment politicians like those in the Labour Party scolding and tut-tutting at how inappropriate that comparison is. Just listen to Ivana Bacik's first ever speech in the Dáil after recently being elected.
And I'm concerned about language, and I know others yesterday raised this issue, about about extreme language, about hyperbole, about using terms like apartheid and Nazism. These are terms that to me are utterly inappropriate.
No wonder the media wanted her to win, eh? What a brilliant addition to our political discourse. And by the way, the term apartheid comes from the word apart. It means to separate or segregate. In South Africa, this was done on the basis of race, but as the dictionary definition shows, it can include any other form of segregation, even including segregation on medical grounds. So it's not hyperbole or exaggeration, it's literally factually true. And by the way, as an aside, note the amount of leftists who now think that calling someone else a Nazi is totally inappropriate and beyond the pale. The same people who for the last half decade have been calling everyone remotely conservative or to the right of Karl Marx a far-right Nazi fascist uber neo-Hitler, but you turn it back on them and suddenly, oh, that's very bad form and let's not engage in hyperbole. Give me a large and substantial break. This policy is insane, unworkable, immoral, and has the potential to become much, much worse. At this stage, stop the world, I want to get off. This policy should be resisted at every step of the way. Please like and share this video, and if you enjoyed it, please consider signing up for a monthly donation via the link on screen to help us produce more content like this. Alternative media like Gript needs all the assistance it can get, and every donation goes a long way. As always, thanks for watching.